In most time periods, there have been teams that have mostly dominated the rest of the competition, usually winning 2 or 3 premierships during this time. Hawthorn were that team from 2012 and 2015, making it to a grand final each year, and winning 3 of those in a row. Geelong were the team to do that between 2007 and 2011, winning 3 premierships across a 5-year span. Go back a bit further, and Brisbane had a three-peat. Continue going back through the years and you'll see a display of dominance by one team over the rest of the competition for a period of time. The Hawks were the last team to display that period of dominance against the rest of the competition, but now they need to hand the torch over to a new team. Who could it be? I'm Ryan, and this is my analysis of who the next dynasty within the AFL will be. If you go back as soon as last year, most plaudits would tell you that GWS would bring the next dynasty to the AFL. Their enormous talent, list management, and general play style won over most viewers to their brand of football. With a seemingly endless list of talent, as well as the smart recruiting of older players to help coach and lead the young draftees, the Giants' long-term plan seemed to be for sustained on-field success. They brought in a wealth of talent through enormous concessions given to them in their inception, and have continued drafting exceptional talent through the academy system. They also didn't bring in any superstars to the team, instead poaching both up and coming players and players entering retirement. This allowed the older players to help develop the talented draftees, while their up and coming traded players evolved into leaders. Bringing in now AFL legend Kevin Sheedy for 2 years was also pivotal in placing real team values into a list that boasted the league's best talent. Something that could have gone potentially alright. Couple that with a look to the future instead of gaining instant success, and it was clear that GWS were on the path to glory. The club then made 2 preliminary final exits across both 2016 and 2017, seemingly on target to achieve what everyone had expected of them, the next dynasty. Enter 2018, a year in which their team is decimated by injury, and suddenly that bottomless list of talent and depth is now exposed. They've lost their last 4 of their last 5 matches and sit 11th on the ladder. Finals are now a luxury for them as they struggle to field a competitive team, let alone one to be talked about through the ages. They've also lost their most imposing player in Shane Mumford to really set the standard of going in tough. GWS, without Mumford playing that role anymore, seem to have lost that tough mental edge they had over other teams. Something that's needed to not only win finals football, but achieve sustained success at the top. Cross them off the list. The current frontrunner from most plaudits' viewpoint is Richmond. On the back of a dominant 2017 campaign in which they won every final by an average of 45 points, the Tigers' start to the 2018 season seemed to be motoring along the same train line. They've looked a little flat recently, but they still sit a game clear in second position and look set to defend their flag at the pointy end of the year. Only injuries to their key players could derail their season, but their star players have a long, clean bill of health, and history would suggest that they don't fall to extended periods in the stands. The issue I have with Richmond, though, is that their game style is a very physical one. It remains to be seen whether they can maintain it all year long. Last year, they really only brought that manic pressure in the second half of the year, so their players didn't fatigue across a 23, highly stressful game period like they are this year. The positive for them is that they have some players to come back to help lift pressure if it is faulting, such as Daniel Rioli, probably the team's best pressure player. They have the potential there, but at best, I can only see that lasting this year, as a third year of that same manic pressure will put a lot of strain on the players' bodies. We saw this happen to Fremantle during their period of dominance a few years ago. What most people seem to forget is that at the start of 2015, the Dockers were a very attacking team and destroyed teams in the first half before coasting to victory. They were then languished with injuries coming into the finals and dropped off the map afterwards. I can see this kind of thing happening to Richmond, unfortunately, but perhaps next year instead of this year. I hope I'm wrong, but history is against them. Their style of football is perfect for finals, but not good for the players' bodies across multiple seasons. What I also see lacking in Richmond is that trademark unsociable style that goes with dominant teams. Yes, they apply huge amounts of pressure, but they never feel like they really bully their way into winning games of football. It feels more like they simply outplay their opponent for an entire 4 quarters. In years past, teams like Hawthorn, Geelong, and even Brisbane would bully their way to a victory if the game wasn't being played on their terms. They never got floggings because they never allowed their opponents to flog them. They would lose games on occasion, as every team does, but they were never losses that made you question that team's flag credentials for that year. Can Richmond win the flag again this year? I believe so, but a dynasty isn't created over the span of 2 years. At least in my opinion. And I don't think they will be on the big stage next year. So, what other teams are there left to choose from? West Coast certainly are flying right now, but they've been unconvincing in recent times to suggest it would be them. With one of the heaviest travel schedules every year, the Eagles only tend to dominate the competition for 2 years at most before tumbling back down the ladder. They could prove me wrong, and as a devout supporter, I'd love to witness it. But I don't think their recent form will create a dynasty. They missed their opportunity after 2015 by committing to the wrong players. No, the team that I think can create that next period of dominance over the competition may seem controversial, considering they've yet to actually achieve anything yet. Their recent history would also suggest a shambles of a club. I am, of course, talking about Carlton. No, I'm joking. It's Melbourne. Melbourne have been languishing in mediocrity for a very long time. They haven't made a final series in over a decade and have gone through about 3 rebuilds in that time. Half a dozen coaches and some of the biggest losses in recent memory. Despite all this, they made one move a few years ago that would change all of this and will probably prove to be the best decision the club has ever made, perhaps bettering the appointment of the late Jim Stynes as president. The year's 2013, enter Paul Roos. This has been the single most important move that Melbourne have made to put them in a position for on-field success. The work of Jim Stynes fixed the club's financial woes tremendously, which enabled them to at least chase Roos as a coach. But the actual appointment may be more important. Paul Roos implemented a game plan focused on defence so that the young players could have games somewhat on their terms. They weren't winning many games early on, but you could get a sense of belief within the group for the first time in a long time. He also drafted smartly with players who wanted to play for the club, as well as trading in older players to help develop the younger brigade, much like what GWS was doing. Once all the defensive tactics were put in place, and the coach in training Simon Goodwin took over, Melbourne were in a position to push up the ladder. He made some changes a bit hastily to their more attacking style of play, and his first year was a bit bumpy, only missing finals on half a percentage point. So why then do I think they will be a dynasty club, when their past shows they have consistently struggled to be successful? Simple. They have a healthy mix of tough, rugged, contested players with classy outside users on every single line. It also comes back to being able to bully their opponents. The thing that I think that both GWS and Richmond are lacking are that real grunt throughout their team. Most of their players can display a touch of feralness about them, so when they aren't playing well, you get a sense that they could still win. This is epitomised by their 2 captains. Nathan Jones is a great contested ball winner, who's being used a bit more on the outside. Perhaps to give some younger players some more responsibility, as he has been the player to carry them through the years. And I think also to take care of his battered body. Jack Viney is the definition of toughness. Seriously, look it up in the dictionary and you'll see his picture under definition. Now clearly Melbourne aren't there yet. And I admit they may not even become that type of team. I can see them making a preliminary final and maybe a grand final this year, but how they approach the back half of the year without Jake Lever should prove interesting. However, out of all the other current day teams, they really are the only one that I can see becoming that generational dynasty. Who do you think will become the next dominant team of the competition? Or do you think equalisation is working so well that we won't have these periods of dominance anymore? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring that bell to receive notifications when new content goes live. Also, make sure to leave a big thumbs up if you did enjoy the video. This has been your AFL Access.